Good morning, cool cats. Happy Friday. Welcome to another edition of First Chapter Friday. Today, I'm going back into my childhood with our book pick. This story reminds me of when I was in elementary school. It seems like every year our teachers would read us this book, and I always thought it was so funny and enjoyable, especially around the holiday time. The title of the book is The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. It's written by Barbara Robinson, and it tells the story of a family, the Herdmans, and they're hilarious. They also end up in a Christmas pageant, and there's lots of funny adventures and quirks that go along with this book. There are some things that are not okay that the Herdmans do, so just make sure that you don't try to copy some of the things that the Herdmans do. So let's read the first chapter. Chapter 1. The Herdmans were absolutely the worst kids in the history of the world. They lied and stole and smoked cigarettes, even the girls. They talked dirty and hit little kids and cussed their teachers and took the name of the Lord in vain and set fire to Fred Shoemaker's old broken down tool house. The tool house burned right down to the ground, and I think that surprised the Herdmans. They set fire to things all the time, but that was the first time they managed to burn down a whole building. I guess it was an accident. I don't suppose they woke up that morning and said to one another, "Hey, let's go down and burn Fred Shoemaker's tool house down." Maybe they did. After all, it was a Saturday and not much was going on. It was a terrific fire. 2 engines, 2 police cars, and all the volunteer firemen, and 5 dozen donuts sent up from the Tasty Lunch Diner. The donuts were supposed to be for the firemen, but by the time they got the fire out, the donuts were all gone. The Herdmans got them. What they couldn't eat, they stuffed in their pockets and down the fronts of their shirts. You could actually see the donuts all around Ollie Herdman's middle. I couldn't understand why the Herdmans were hanging around the scene of their crime. Everybody knew the whole thing was their fault, and you'd think they'd have the brains to get out of sight. One fireman even grabbed Claude Herdman by the collar and said, "Did you kids start this fire smoking cigars in that tool house?" But Claude just said, "We weren't smoking cigars." And they weren't. They were playing with Leroy Herdman's Young Einstein chemistry set, which he stole from the hardware store. That's how they started the fire. Leroy said so. "We mixed all the little powders together," he said, "and poured lighter fluid all around them and set fire to the lighter fluid. We wanted to see if the chemistry set was any good." Any other kid, even a mean kid, would have been a little bit worried if he stole $4.95 worth of something and then burned down a building with it. But Leroy was just mad because the chemistry set got burned up along with everything else before he had a chance to make 1 or 2 bombs. The fire chief got all of us kids together. There were 15 or 20 of us standing around watching the fire, and gave us a little talk about playing with matches and gasoline and dangerous things like that. "I don't say that's what happened here," he told us. "I don't know what happened here, but what could have been it, and you see the results. So let this be a good lesson to you boys and girls." Of course, it was a great lesson to the Herdmans. They learned that whenever there's a fire, there'll be free donuts sooner or later. I guess things would have been different if they had burned down, say, the Second Presbyterian Church instead of the tool house. But the tool house was about to fall down anyway, and all the neighbors had pestered Mr. Shoemaker to do something about it because it looked so awful and it was sure to bring rats. So everybody said the fire was a blessing in disguise, and even Mr. Shoemaker said it was a relief. My father said it was the only good thing the Herdmans ever did. If they had known it was a good thing, they wouldn't have done it at all. They would have set fire to something else or somebody. They were they were just so all around awful, you could hardly believe they were real. Ralph, Imogene, Leroy, Claude, Ollie, and Gladys. Skinny, stringy-haired kids, all alike, except for being different sizes and having different black and blue places where they had clumped each other. They lived over a garage at the bottom of Sproul Hill. Nobody used the garage anymore, but the Hermans used to bang the door up and down just as fast as they could to try and squash one another. That was their idea of a game. Where other people had grass in their front yard, the Herdmans had rocks. And where other people had hydrangea bushes, the Herdmans had poison ivy. There was also a sign in the yard that said, "Beware of cats." New kids always laughed about that till they got to look at the cat. It was the meanest looking animal I ever saw. It had one short leg and a broken tail and one missing eye, and the mailman wouldn't deliver anything to the Herdmans because of it. "I don't think it's a regular cat at all," the mailman told my father. "I think those kids went up in the hills and they caught themselves a bobcat." "Oh, I don't think you can tame a wild bobcat," my father said. "I'm sure you can't," said the mailman. "They'd never try to tame it. They'd just try to make it wilder than it was to begin with." If that was their plan, it worked. That cat would attack anything it could see out of its one eye. One day, Claude Herman emptied the whole first grade in 3 minutes flat when he took the cat to show and tell. He didn't feed it for 2 days, so it was already mad. Then he carried it to school in a box, and when he opened the box, the cat shot out right straight up in the air, people said. It came down on top of the blackboard ledge and clawed 4 big long scratches all the way down the blackboard. Okay, we're going to end chapter 1 right there. It does go on a little bit more, and we learn about what happens in the classroom when the cat gets out. So, if you are interested in learning more about these crazy herdmans, come to the library and check out the best Christmas pageant ever. I hope everyone has a great weekend.